This is Morgan Hazelwood, back again with more writing tips and writerly musings. Today I'm here to talk to you about the top 11 ways not to respond when getting feedback. We're starting off with the heavy hitters now. Tip 1 of ways not to respond is take it personally. When you look at the rest of this list, most of these clearly derive from the same place. The real reason a writer will lash out is when we take critiques personally. They say, this chapter needs some work, and we hear, you are a bad writer. We know intellectually they usually don't actually mean that, but in our heart of hearts, it feels like that. This is why you should sit on feedback. Let it percolate through your brain. Don't knee-jerk react and lash out. Which brings us to number 2 of ways not to respond. Argue with them. Don't send them a detailed email, letter, what have you, countering and justifying why every last suggestion they gave you was wrong and why you were right in the first place. Honestly, don't argue in their DMs, via text, on the phone, or in person. Don't harass them. Let them be. Number 3 of ways not to respond when getting feedback is to tell them that they gave you the wrong feedback. If you don't tell your critiquer what you're looking for, pacing, characterization, world building, line edits, whatever, and all of their feedback is concentrated in areas you just don't care about right now, it can be frustrating. But the real fix is to tell them what you're looking for when you give them the draft, not after they've put forth all that effort. Number 4 of ways not to respond when you get feedback is just skim read it. Make sure you're actually responding to what they actually said. Make sure to always reread to make sure you understand what they're saying and the context. We've all been there where we've read too fast or we're fixated on something else so we think everything's about that one thing and we end up misconstruing the entire thing. Just make sure if you're getting upset at the feedback, you're getting upset at what was actually said. Number 5 of ways not to respond to feedback is to question their grasp of the English or whatever language. So don't ask them when you get their feedback if English or whatever language you write in is their first language, if they're dyslexic, or if they grew up speaking the wrong dialect. That is just prejudice, and I'm not even going there. Number 6 of ways not to respond to feedback: ignore their feedback. I know I've said this before, but even if you think a beta is going in the wrong direction, they are often pointing out things that need to be changed, or at least clarified, or better justified in the text. Now, this isn't saying you have to agree with everything a beta says, especially those critiquers out there who think they should be rewriting your piece the way they would have written it. This is why getting a single chapter critique before committing to a full manuscript review can be crucial. But if someone has taken the time to read your work and critique it, and you've publicly thanked them while leaving and all the typos and plot holes and what have you that they pointed out to you, it will make them look bad, unprofessional, and if they're paid editors, lose business. Don't do it. If you can't follow their suggestions, don't put them on the don't credit them with the quality of your work. So number 7 of ways not to respond to feedback is don't repay them. Sure, there are awesome people out there who are critiquing your work out of the goodness of their hearts and a desire to give back to the community, but that's not usually the case. Even if you don't like their advice, that doesn't mean you don't have to pay them or critique their work in advance, or whatever you agreed to. You should be a writer of your word. Pun intended. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Okay, number 8 of ways not to respond to feedback is to slam their work. It hurts when someone tells you that your writing needs work, especially when they're saying your writing needs a lot of work. But that doesn't mean you should trash their writing, be it while critiquing their draft, bad-mouthing them publicly or even privately, or one-starring their published works. Don't do it. It's unprofessional. And the writing world is small. It will get known that you do this. Number 9 of ways not to respond when getting feedback. Expect the critiquer to know how to magically fix everything. On the flip side of all these negative things, some writers expect the critiquer to fix everything and that their novel will be done as soon as they get that feedback. They don't understand why they would need to edit after they click accept all changes. Edits are often clunky. Even after I incorporate feedback, I always do a final polishing round on every chapter, just to verify the flow, check the line edits. When people are editing, sometimes they highlight and they miss a space or a period and the punctuation gets wonky. And I want to make sure that my voice is consistent. It's very hard for someone to make line changes and still have it sound like the rest of the text around it. You're probably going to need to change some wording or pacing to make it match what's already there. Also, your critiquer doesn't know your character, your world, and your story as well as you do. No one does. Remember that their suggestions are merely that. Suggestions. You might want to fix everything they point out, but you don't have to fix it the exact way they suggested. Make sure that your story stays consistent and true to itself. So, number 10 of ways not to respond to feedback is assuming that the edits guarantee a contract. No. Contracts and sales are 10% hard work, and let me tell you, it's a lot of hard work. And 90% timing and luck. No matter how good of a writer you are, no matter how good your editor is, there is no way to guarantee a sale outside of buying the copy yourself, whether you're going traditional publishing or indie. You just can't. And the final thing not to do when getting feedback, don't thank them. Reading someone else's work and thinking of ways to improve it and being brave enough to share your thoughts with someone is time-consuming and sometimes emotionally draining. This person has done work for you. Always thank them. And that's the 11 ways not to respond to feedback. Have you ever had a writer respond poorly to your critiques? Share your horror stories in the comments below, or share stories of writers who did it right. And that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with all your friends. It goes a long way towards helping people find me. And I'll be back again next Monday with more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.